His name is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Was that him?
My mother, she wonders if you have brought your famous hat.
The deer stalker. I've never worn one.
And a pipe.
I prefer a cigar.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Alonzo Bibbs. What was your name again? You were on vacation.
My name is Christy Lemire.
Christy. She was on vacation, you know, out of sight, out of mind. All right, we're getting caught up on a film that came out a few weeks ago that we did not get to before. Bill Condon's Mr. Holmes. I know Mr. Condon and his partner, so I'm not going to actually give a score here, but following my rule of if I know you and you made a movie I liked, I'm still going to talk about that I liked it.
Thank God we have standards here.
That's right. Yeah. We're upfront about this stuff.
And if you know he knows someone and they make a movie and he doesn't talk about it, you know it sucked.
Bibbs will describe.
Bibbs, please describe.
Sir Ian McKellen plays an aging Sherlock Holmes whose last great mystery is himself. Let's take a look.
If I ever write a story myself, it will be to correct the myriad misconceptions created by his imaginative license.
Murder, Mr. Kelmott. Murder.
I didn't know you wrote stories.
I decided to get it right before I die.
You're not going to die. I had a great uncle who lived to be 102.
What are the odds that you would know two men who would live that long?
Well, I didn't actually know him. We're about to start an investigation.
If you need suspects, you know where to find me.
A man comes to Baker Street, you say you've come about your wife. How could you tell?
When you're a detective and a man comes to visit you, it's usually about his wife.
My Anne has changed. Yesterday I followed her.
It is highly poisonous. A drop will more than suffice.
I demand you produce her.
Oswald, it is a wish to know if you are this man's wife.
No.
Voila!
Now, Roger's been a help to you. He's always been clever.
It's evidence.
Now we must solve it. A convincing set of circumstances signaling your intention to murder your husband.
Mr. Holmes.
So I was watching this, I was thinking this felt like still Sherlock. Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because he's having to remember things. He had a brilliant mind, and he was renowned for his brilliant mind, but it's all leaving him in little pieces.
He's
kind of like still Alice.
But his life has been Sherlocked. You know, like on that show, like on the show. You watch the show, right?
I've seen it once or twice.
Oh, it's so good.
I was reminded a lot of Gods and Monsters, actually, which was the previous Condon-McKellen collaborations, but somebody at the end of his life, sort of like mixing memory with what's happening right now, you know, finding a younger friend who's sort of interested and you know, engaging for that last bit. Obviously, in this case, it's a fictional character as opposed to in Gods and Monsters.
And it's not as sexualized because...
Certainly not.
Please,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
That would be super creepy.
That would be super creepy. You know, it is weird, the number of parallels, though, between them, just in the story structure, the housekeeper, and everything. Like, it's right on the money. And I found myself, it's frustrating when someone makes a film that's kind of like what they've done before. Like, you can't help but look at Casino as maybe the lesser Goodfellas, because they're just so similar in a lot of ways. And yet I find myself watching Mr. Holmes and I'm like, this is a very well acted film. It's a nicely shot film. I was engaged in the story. I got a little weepy at the end. And yet it never quite rings my bell the way that Gods and Monsters does. I never really feel like it gets deep into the core of something. It feels like he's just looking at this man who's very well acted. Ian McKellen is great as a mystery. And then he solves the mystery. And then we all go, oh. And then the movie ends. And it's good, but it's just not. It doesn't have that great quality.
It is handsome.
Yes, it definitely.
It's very well made.
Yeah,
very solidly made.
It is one of those British countryside movies where there's a train, you know, and
you can't not have a train.
You have to talk about the bees.
And there's a ton of great British character actors in it. Francis de Latour and Francis Barber and other people not named Francis and
Laura Linney playing somebody Irish, maybe.
Yeah, I thought did the accent didn't work for you?
No, I guess she's Irish. She's not American.
I was thinking Irish, sure, working class British.
Whatever,
There's
she's
a million
good in it.
accents over there. Milo Parker plays her son.
He's really good.
He seems like the new millennial Freddie Highmore. I liked him a lot.
He is Freddie Highmore. He's not precocious.
No.
No, I like that about him. I like that he's a jerk. I like that. There's not enough, like often in films like this where someone befriends like a young cherub, the young cherub is like, oh, well, I had given up on life, but thank goodness your youthful bravado and optimism has cured my cancer. Like, like this kid is like, his mom is uneducated. The kid's obviously bright, but not a genius. And he just gravitates more towards Mr. Holmes and he starts resenting his mom. And even Mr. Holmes is just like, you're being a jerk. I like that. I like that the kid is taken to task. That's a better written kid character than we usually get in a movie like this.
No,
It's
definitely.
an awful awkward age too. He's like, what, he's like 10 or 11?
Puberty is just hidden.
Right.
He's going to be a little monster for about like the next 12 years.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like, I really, really liked it. I was totally engaged the whole time. I mean, and Ian McKellen, even though he's playing the same character, has to do like two very distinct versions of that character. You know, when he's totally at his sharpest 30 years ago and then deteriorating now, make them both believable, make them both seamless. And because he's Ian McKellen and can do everything,
Well,
he
and
does that
I
beautifully.
really admire the age makeup here
Yeah.
because to take a character who is already of a certain age and then to advance him to an even more certain age.
And they make him younger also.
Well, right, yeah, it's a subtle trick. It's one thing to
both
like
directions.
make a 23-year-old look like he's 100, but to make a 70-year-old look 90, that's
It's interesting. That's the reason why the Academy always rewards the film that makes like Meryl Streep look like 10 years older, as opposed to a film that made lots of monsters. It's the subtlety I think we gravitate towards. Like, oh, I really believed that Ian McKellen was old.
I mean, I see what you're saying about not having necessarily the same stakes as Gods and Monsters, and obviously because we're working with a character that we know is a fictional construct as opposed to a biopic, that's going to maybe muddy the water. But I still felt like I went somewhere with this guy, and I'll tell you, it was one of the few films about sort of senility and possibly encroaching dementia that didn't make me want to just immediately kill myself.
Maybe that is a failing, though. Do you ever think about that?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, this is ultimately fan fiction.
Right, that is interesting.
But I think it's done well and it's done interesting.
Well, here's the thing for me. When you look at something like Gods and Monsters, when it is about a real person, you can't help but think about the actual consequences of the period that person lived in, when they had to live in the closet and the consequences of being more out of it than other people. When you have something with Sherlock and Mr. Holmes, you're ultimately commenting on the character. You're ultimately saying, what if Sherlock Holmes got old and his mental faculties were failing and then had to go on one last mystery, but it couldn't be a really big mystery because he can't really leave his house. And it's an interesting experiment, and God knows it's very well acted. It just doesn't amount to a lot, which is why it doesn't become like a great movie.
I think what it does amount to is the idea of you can be the world's greatest detective and you can know all these things about science and even about human nature, but it's ultimately people themselves may remain a mystery to you, and humanity may remain a mystery to you, and there's a lesson in that.
That's fair. I just don't know. Here's my thing. When you do like a fan fiction thing about it, like, oh, what if Sherlock Holmes realizes that he doesn't understand people very well? That's in the original text. So it's not really blowing my mind. It's just a good story about it. So that's my whole thing. It's not.
If
It
you
just
don't
didn't blow
know
my
that,
mind.
you're going to be entertained and enthralled the whole time.
But
I don't know that.
Yeah. No, fair
I
enough.
know a whole lot. I don't
Okay.
read. Okay, so let's do our numbers then, please.
I'm
You're
recusing on
abstaining.
numbers.
Okay.
And mine, I don't even remember what did I
You
give
said
it?
7.9.
I reviewed it a long
Do
time
you
ago. I
stand
forgot.
by
I stand
that?
by 7.9. It is definitely a recommendation. I'm just trying to explain why it's not like, whoa, you have to see Mr. Holmes, man.
I'm apparently lower than you are. I'm 7.5. So our average is 7.7. Right, Alonzo?
Yes, ma'am.
7.7 is our average?
Yes.
Thank you. It says 86% on the tomato meter. So really good, solid. It might be in more theaters now than it was when it first came out.
I think it's been slowly expanding, and it's, it does fall into the category of like Sunday matinee you could take your grandma to. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing.
That is not a bad thing.
No.
That's a whole genre unto itself.
Absolutely.
Don't take her to Straight Outta Compton.
Maybe not.
Bye.